Hey everybody, I'm Aaron Simmons. This is Philosophy for Where We Find Ourselves, January 5th, 2021. I recently posted my New Year's video all about the way that expectation functions in Kierkegaard as a launching pad, we might say, for this new year. In light of that video, I had a viewer ask a question about how I would read Albert Camus' notion of the myth of Sisyphus in light of this Kierkegaardian notion of expectation. It seems that we might have the ability to expect a particular kind of victory when we have an uncertainty about the future. But what if we have certainty that things are not going to work out the way we might hope? How do we maintain some sort of expected, hopeful, joyful relationship to where we are if we know that where we're going is probably not going to be ideal? Now, some of you may not be familiar with the myth of Sisyphus. This is a story about Sisyphus who gets on the wrong side of the gods. And as his punishment, he is forced to roll a boulder up a very steep hill. Now, when he gets to the top of that hill, the boulder then rolls back down the hill. Sisyphus has to return to the bottom and push it back up once again. What could be worse? What could be more futile? What could be more despairing than having to roll a rock up a hill, but never being able to enjoy the accomplishment of that work? There is no fulfilled end. There is no expectation of victory. There is simply more rolling of the rock. It's sort of like C.S. Lewis in the Chronicles of Narnia, where he describes Narnia under the reign of the White Witch as always winter, but never Christmas. It's always on the way to something, but the something is prohibited. It's cut off from the work in which you are engaged. Now, it's one thing to say that we work a long time so that we can enjoy retirement. But what if you knew that you would never be able to retire? How would that change your relationship to work? Well, behind me, we see what is, in fact, a very steep hill. I'm about to climb it. But I'm going to climb this hill because there's a waterfall at the top of it. What if there wasn't? And what if the hill just continued to climb? There was not the crest of the hill, the summit, where I get to sit down, relax, enjoy the view, eat some lunch, and celebrate the hard work that has gone into making that moment possible. These are the questions that Camus asks us. And they are the right questions in light of the difficulties of the human condition. Now, there are a variety of ways to read Camus, and some read his work as ultimately yielding a kind of absurdity. It's that Sisyphus represents the absurdity of our lives as well. No matter what we do, we're simply always toiling without ever accomplishing some sort of finality. I think this is the wrong way to read the myth of Sisyphus, however. At the very end of that text, he says that we leave Sisyphus there with his rock and we imagine him happy. Now, why in the world would this story take such an unexpected twist? Why imagine him happy? Shouldn't we, of all people, imagine him the most miserable? But Camus says no. And the reason is because about halfway into the story, he has this little line: the rock is his thing. Sisyphus has his rock. In other words, he has purpose. He has a thing that he is to do, and he knows what that thing is. All of my students, at one point or another, wrestle with what is the thing they are to do with their lives. What is going to be their thing? And I often will tell them to read the Myth of Sisyphus, because the point of the text is that we find our thing, that we have a purpose. Not that we be oriented towards success, but that we be oriented toward faithfulness in pursuing that task. Now, this is a hard lesson. It's one that I ultimately struggle with many, many days. But I love the idea that we are also to find our rock. that the goal is to keep pushing it. That even when setbacks come and the rock rolls back down the hill, we still have work to do, and it matters that we do it well. Why is Sisyphus imagined happy? Because we don't know how he feels, but we are able to make meaning from his story. We can imagine it a different way. We can imagine it as the reason for his being. I recently watched some videos on the blue zone idea of longevity and happiness in life. And one of the key aspects to a long life, a happy life, in all of these different demographic and cross-cultural scenarios is that all of the people have a purpose. They have their rock. So what is your rock? What is my rock? What is the thing we are here to do? I think this is a slightly different sort of lesson than the one we get in Kierkegaard about expectation, but it is an important one nonetheless. Our expected ends are rarely certain, and sometimes we can seem to be facing an insurmountable obstacle. But stop worrying about the success and invest yourself in the faithfulness. Find your rock, imagine Sisyphus happy, and start walking up the hill. I'll see you next time, unless a piano falls on our heads.